I'm happy to be here with everyone today in what I hear has been a very interesting session or series of sessions today. Now, I have the unending right after lunch, and you know what they say about presentations that are right after lunch. They're at a time when everybody definitely needs to recharge. So I don't know if the organizer purposely scheduled me. Kind of a good time to talk about don't know what happened there, but I'm back. As I was saying, as I was saying, this topic I feel is even more relevant for today with what we as teachers have been going through. So in the short time we have together, I'm going to give you what I think is the rationale why we need some training and at least discussion on recharge, why the topic is important, why the need to recharge. And then we're going to take a step back and look at how we define success, because our definition for success is, in my view, inherent in the need to recharge. We'll look at values that we as teachers have as people and as professionals, and we'll look at one of the main problems that teachers face these days, and that's work-life balance. We'll take a look at some common traps that teachers often fall into, and we'll look at two strategies that I found very helpful in my coaching, which is the writing of smarter goals and success statements. And then we'll turn to some strategies that we as people and professionals can use to reset the balance. And I hope to finish all this in about 35 minutes, so we have plenty of time for discussion, question and answer, and to hear some of your success strategies for resetting the balance. So let's get started. Well, the rationale, I feel that in today's world, we as TESOL professionals worldwide face bigger, harder, and more demanding challenges than ever. And sometimes I wonder, how do we do it all? How do we create a professional climate that makes us capable of giving our best and getting the most out of life in both a personal and a professional context? So, all too often, we look at success in terms of the wrong things, or what experts in this field term the wrong things. Many of us define success as getting a promotion, advancing within the workplace. Some of us define success as having the latest, having the latest car, having the latest watch, or whatever it is in terms of material possessions. Financial gain, making lots of money, is another way that we as people determine what success is. So an all too common story amongst teaching professionals is that it is easy to work long hours so that we can have this good standard of living And of course, we neglect self-development, our leisure time activities, our self-care, and our personal happiness. And that, in my view, is the big issue. So why do we need to recharge? Well, probably a topic that you're all very familiar with is burnout. And I hope you're not familiar with it because you have experienced it. But burnout, in case you don't know what burnout is a physiological condition of despair and detachment that often occurs in people who work with people. And unfortunately, teaching is in the top five jobs of burnout. Now, luckily, many of the interactions we have with people, our students mostly, are positive interactions. So the burnout isn't necessarily a big issue. However, people in the medical profession, like doctors and nurses, many of the interactions they have, particularly nowadays, are negative interactions because the people they deal with are sick in some way. So this burnout is still a big issue for teachers, and sometimes it can be so severe that it starts affecting its victims physically, and there are actual physical symptoms that occur. Here are some of the early warning signs of burnout. So things like being tired all the time, being angry at people who force new demands on us. Sometimes we criticize ourselves for actually putting up with these demands, being cynical, negative, irritable, a sense of being besieged with a variety of different tasks, being overwhelmed. We explode or get angry easily at the least things, at small things. Frequent headaches and gastrointestinal disturbances, weight loss or gain, being sleeplessness, insomnia, depression, shortness of breath, suspiciousness, feeling a helpless feeling, and the increased degree of risk taking. Now, if we were here together and I could see you all, I might ask you to read through that list. And as soon as you come to a symptom that you have experienced, raise your hand. And usually we only get like a few seconds into it, because if I were reading this list in my own audience, chronic fatigue, my hand would go up straight away, because I always feel tired, because it's especially now more so sitting at a computer online without any kind of interaction with students is much more tiring than being in a physical classroom. So keep in mind, these are early warning signs of burnout that you might experience. Now, if you email me at the end of this presentation, and my email will be at the last slide, you might request a copy of my PowerPoint, and you can take this burnout vulnerability quiz and see if you are vulnerable to burnout. Now, if you do deal with burnout at either now or sometime in your career, there are three ways that teachers often deal with burnout. Some take a very extreme solution, and they end their careers as professional educators. They simply get out of teaching. Others seek the middle of the road solution, and they downshift. Downshifting means to take a less prestigious or senior or demanding role. Maybe they go from manager to teacher. They go from full to part-time, or they have some duties that they currently do reassigned to others. So they downshift in their careers. Now, in my view, and according to the literature, the healthiest way to deal with burnout is the third one on this slide, and that's to reframe your sense of identity. And in so doing, develop outside interests, place more emphasis on family and friends, maybe relocation as well, moving to a different area. So this is one of those areas that I read a lot of self-help literature. I don't know if you do as well. And when I first started reading the self-help literature, to try to better manage my time, to be more productive, to be more professional. One of the things all the books recommended, all the authors said was crucial, was to have outside interest, to develop interests that define you outside of the classroom. And when I first started reading this, I thought to myself in a very naive way, I don't have time to have a hobby. I'm a teacher and my job is so full. My role is so important for the life of my students and for other teachers. I can't possibly find time to have a hobby. But because I read it so much, I thought to myself, there must be something in this. And sure enough, the research shows that by having an outside interest, something that you do when you're not in the classroom, like on the weekends, it actually, the time you take away from your job actually helps you de-stress, and you're actually more productive when you come back to work. So now I'm a firm believer of having outside interests. All right, so those are the 3 ways that we can deal with burnout. With that last one, reframing our sense of identity as, in my view, the healthiest solution to burnout. So for me, recharging was very important. A couple of years ago, when I started this presentation, it came to my attention that the perception that other people had about me was that I was one-sided. I was all work and no play. And in looking at my life and in doing a critical analysis of my existence as a person and as a professional, I came to the realization that they were right. So I set out to achieve the ever elusive balance in my existence. And the rest of this presentation is kind of like the journey that I went on to do that. Now, I don't know how successful I've been, because here I am on the weekend. Saturday's the weekend for us all, and I'm speaking at a conference. Okay, and I've been working, all morning in anticipation of this conference. So maybe all of us at this conference need to examine our work-life balance, but it is only 1 hour out of the day, not, the whole day, at least for me. So one of the things that was very much recommended in the literature was, in order to reset the balance in your life and recharge, it was important that you look at and critically evaluate what success means to you. So if you want to be successful in both work and in life in general, you need to examine or define what is success for you. And some of the activities that are recommended include goals, values, your purposes, what roles you play, and what attitude you choose to, attack life with. So ultimately, in looking at my own existence, I define success as leading a fulfilling and balanced life. So that was my simplistic definition. Now, in order to do that, I looked at what my values were, and I'm a big proponent of personal and professional strategic planning. So looking at the values you have in life and at work is an important part of strategically planning your existence. And one of the best recommendations in order to do that is to schedule a retreat for yourself. I'm not sure if any of you know the term a retreat, but a retreat is a professional development event that usually takes place in a relaxed environment where people are, they dress in a comfortable way. They're not, in their suits and tie at a conference hall or in a classroom. So schedule a retreat for yourself to think about what is important to you. Reflection is very important in this process. And then to think about whatever roles you play and what kind of, let's say, partner, spouse, parent, friend, teacher, son, daughter, manager would you like to be? Then once you have determined what your values are, what's most important to you, you put those at the center of your life and you use those values to help develop a vision. You do so by setting what are called critical areas of your life. Now, This is also an important step in personal and professional strategic planning. And if you all are thinking about developing your own personal or professional strategic plan, or PSP, you can take an approach that is a more complicated approach by using the 10 critical areas of life as put forward by Blair. Now, these areas, the critical areas, are the areas where you later set goals for yourself or you set rules for yourself. So Blair recommends 10 critical areas, and you can see them on this slide. Things like personal, health, career, household, religion, etc. If 10 is too many, and it might be too many, I personally have 9 critical areas on my PSP because I've combined friends and family. You can look at the Simonelli and May recommendation of only setting goals in 4 areas: me, family, profession, and community. You can take a look at these lists or you can pick and choose from each to set your own list. But a very important part of this process to reset the balance is choosing which areas of your life you'd like to move forward in or set goals in. So setting some critical areas for yourself. Now, if we switch gears and talk about a balanced life, people who lead well-balanced life have a number of successful characteristics in common. And look at the first one. They set achievable goals. We're going to revisit the importance of setting goals here in a minute. They also live life to its fullest. They try to get the most in life. They prioritize things that are important, and they try not to spend too much attention on those trivial things. You've heard the expression, don't sweat the small stuff. That's the title of, in fact, a really good book that I would recommend you get hold of. And it's a very easy read as well. Attitude is very important, so maintaining a positive mental attitude is pretty much the only recommendation. Recognizing success is very important. In my own reflection on success, I found that a number of years ago that people consider me successful, but any of the successes that I would have achieved, I would kind of gloss over my own successes and focus on the things that I wasn't successful for. I was like obsessing about the things I hadn't yet accomplished or failed at or things like this. Now failure is important too, but recognizing your success is equally important. Focusing on values is critical. Oftentimes when we do time management activities to see where our time is being spent, we often find that, for me, for example, I always put my family, who is now just my sister, at the top of my list. And in the time management literature, whatever is your important value is where you should spend most of your time. Even though I do everything I can for my sister, my family, I only really talk to her for about an hour a day. So the great majority of my time is not spent on the most important person in my life, which is her. So some of us discover that we are misrepresenting what our values are, or we're not putting our time where our heart actually is. So focusing on values is important as well. If you do have family, involving them in the development of your vision is also important. Probably the biggest role of service that I've done in my career was serve as TESOL International President, which is actually a 1-year term as president, but a 2-year term as well, in addition, as president-elect and past president. So for 3 years, I essentially worked a full-time job in Dubai and did another voluntary job, which was a huge job, which involved so many trips around the world. Literally, twice a month I was flying to some conference to speak and represent TESOL International. And before I took this on, I knew this would affect my vacation time, which was my time with family. So I discussed this with my, my father who was with us then, and my family members to get their buy-in on, like, if I'm elected president and we spend time together in the summer, you'll have to come with me to wherever I have to go. And of course, as all great families do, they supported me 100%. But involving your families in the development of your vision is really important. I hope you've not experienced the situation where you set a goal for yourself and the goal is not something that your friends and family want you to do, because sometimes people get sabotaged with their goals if they don't have key people involved in setting them. So let's look now at some common traps that we often fall into as teachers. Well, this first one is definitely me. Whenever I have a big project that I don't have time to complete during the regular, what is it, 16 or 18-hour day, what I do, I start early. And by early, I mean 4:30 in the morning. In fact, I have a preset alarm on my phone for 4:30 a.m. And whenever I have something I need to do and can't find the hours during the day, I just get up at 4:30 a.m. Start early or stay late. So this is not the right thing to do, because what happens when you get up at 4:30, you're sacrificing on sleep, which is really important for our own self-care. And maybe you're too tired to get through the rest of your day. So that's a common trap in time management. Learning how to manage urgency is also important. When I first started my own to-do lists, I used the Stephen Covey time management matrix that asks you to rate the task that you have to do by urgent and important, urgent but not important. There were 4 classifications. And when I first started to do this, I would put all of my tasks in the urgent and important, when we really know that not everything is both urgent and important. So learning how to prioritize the things that absolutely need to be done first is a very important skill. Oftentimes living too fast. This was certainly something that I oftentimes experienced in terms of speed and quality of life. I think one thing that the pandemic has done, it has created it has forced us all into not living too fast. We've all had to slow down, reflect more, think about our health, and think about our safety. So maybe the pandemic is a silver lining to this common trap. The activity trap as well. I know that I've just done my to-do list for tomorrow, and literally my day will start at 7 o'clock tomorrow when I get my weekly COVID test, and my last class finishes at 7 p.m. tomorrow night without any break, just straight through. And most of the time I will be sitting on a Collaborate or a Zoom meeting. So it's really important that during days like this, you infuse moments of reflection into what you're doing. And that gets harder and harder for me to do each day, but I think it's very important. So I want to take us back to those critical areas that we have thought about. And we've defined our definition of success. We've identified the roles that we play. The next recommendation for a healthy work-life balance is to create a number of goals. And the goals should be short, mid, and long-term goals. So by short-term goals, I might mean within the next month. Mid-term goals, I mean within the next few months. And long-term goals can be year, 2 year, 3 year. And one of the things I'm going to show you is an activity that I learned out of a book to make goals of things you want to be, you hope to do, and you hope to have. And I'm going to explain my way of setting goals and then show you a goal from my own PSP in each of these 3 categories. And then I'm going to ask you for some ideas as well. So you've all heard of the SMART goal analogy, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. I think all those categories or criteria for goals are very important. But my own way of setting goals extends that into the smarter goal analogy, where the E in smarter, is where it extends you. And by extends you, I means moves you forward either as a person or as a professional. The rewarding part of the smarter goal is that each goal on your PSP should ideally be rewarding or even fun for you. And when I look at everything on my to-do list, I think, only really, well, at best, 40% of my to-do list is rewarding, is fun. There are things, that we have to do in life that aren't necessarily fun things, like going out on the street and waiting to get a COVID test tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning is not in any way rewarding. I'm thinking about how I can try to make that a little bit more enjoyable. Maybe I'll take a book that I've wanted to read or listen to. So now I'd like to show you a few goals that I have set for myself in each of these categories. And then I'm going to ask you to, we're going to start with things you want to be. And then I'm going to ask you to maybe pop a few goals in the chat of things you want to be. And I'm going to ask James, if you would mind turning on your mic and looking at the chat box so you could read some of the comments. Okay, so here's my things you want to be. So for me, because I'm like most of you, one of the things I want to be is a better teacher beyond or outside the classroom. And I would like to relaunch a club that was very successful pre-COVID, and it was called the Global Local Club. And it was a club which focused on foreign educational field trips, okay? Travel is a big thing within the UAE, and students here travel a lot. Travel is my number one hobby. So I thought, what better way to help my students become better people than to have them experience trips to a number of different places and go through educational opportunities. So over the course of maybe 6 or 7 years, we did 16 trips to different places around the world. And it was probably one of my best teaching experiences. However, now, what can we do? How can we relaunch this kind of educational endeavor? So my smarter goal is one where I want to think of ways where we can relaunch this type of experience, and it might be through Zoom for the next couple of years. Who knows? So that's my to be goal. So if I could ask a couple of you what are some to be goals? Now you don't have to type all the smarter characteristics, but just the first one. What do you want to be? Let's hear from a few people, please. And James, if you could read off a few for me, please. Great, that's a great goal, yeah. I would steal that one for myself as well. Okay, anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next goal, which is, do we have something? Okay, all right, good. Any others? Now the tip, yeah. Okay, great. Now my second smarter goal is the traditional to-do goal, okay? So, and my personal goal relates to a book project that I've been involved in for a couple of years. I want to edit a reference book on research questions in our field, okay? So I've taken you through all the, all the smarter criteria, and hopefully, this is going to, be out by the end of the year, inshallah. So hopefully things will be okay. So that's a sample to-do goal. What are some other to-do goals that you might have? If you could just pop them in the chat, please. Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. Good. Okay. Good. Good. Mm-hmm. Again, that's a good goal as well. Now, my third goal is a to have goal. Okay. A few years ago, I don't want to tell you what age I turned, but it was a milestone birthday I had, and I just decided, I made the decision that I would shift my focus from accumulating material possessions to spending what money I had after I had covered my family and my own expenses, to spending this money on experiences. And every summer, one of my goals is to take myself and my family to a place we've always wanted to go. Hence our big our travels. My family, we've always had the ethos about, you can't take it with you. So we don't save our money so that each of us will inherit a lot of money. We have always made the decision that we're going to have fun with our money before we're all gone. Okay, we'll spend it together. So my goal, even though travel is probably still going to be very restricted, my goal is to spend 10 days in Hawaii this July and take my sister with me. So travel is my number one goal. Even though I've been to Hawaii several times, we've got a different way, and plus this will be the celebration of my upcoming birthday as well. So having a vacation finally after not leaving the country for, it'll be probably a year and a half where I haven't traveled anywhere, is our to have goal. What about for the rest of you? Do you have any to have goals? If you could write those in the chat. Okay. Yes, good. Yeah. Yeah, to have a couple extra hours in the day, right? That would be, I think, every teacher's dream. But yes, okay. Yeah, I think a close second for my to have goal was something I've always wanted, but doesn't really exist at my institution, is to have a sabbatical. I don't know if that's something you have in Turkey where you're at. Do you have the concept of the sabbatical? You know what a sabbatical is? A sabbatical is part of Western education. It's where once you have once you have worked in a ranked position for 7 years, hence the word Sabbath, that's seven, you are eligible to apply for a sabbatical, which is taking a year off or a semester off and still getting paid for your university to do a big project. And most people plan their sabbaticals in where they go and collect data for a book or a big research project in another country around the world. And I've always wanted to do a sabbatical. So I hope they at some point come to this part of the world. Okay, I see. I see. Okay. Yeah. Hmm. Nice. Yes. Good. Good. Okay, great. All right, so okay, smarter goals, that's one strategy, very much recommended. The second strategy recommended is to develop your own success statement. Now, a success statement, according to many in the literature, refers to a reference point that you as a person and as a professional use for assessing your work-life balance. So it should be a statement that encompasses your values, your purposes in life, as well as your roles, the roles you play, and your goals. So it's kind of like your personal constitution, which is the criteria by which you balance your life. So the statement should inspire the decisions that you make or will make, influences your actions, and guides you both personally and professionally. So I'm going to share my success statement, and as I read it to you, I'd like you to look for my goals, my roles, my values, my purpose, okay? And how I balance my life. Now, this statement, it's kind of long. It goes over 2 slides. And if we had time together in a workshop format, I'd ask you to start thinking about your own success statement. So, my success statement reads as follows. I strive to achieve a balance between my work and my life. I address my family's needs first by contributing to their well-being and happiness. I am valued by my family, friends, colleagues, and students. I achieve my career goals with great tenacity and celebrate my successes and those of others. I am known for my sense of humor, active lifestyle, quest for adventure, and generosity. I consider myself a team player and a mentor. I am committed to learning one new thing or skill every day. I am as committed to my hobbies of reading, watching TV and movies, traveling, scuba diving, and Toastmasters as I am to my career. Self-care is now extremely important for me, and I try to relax and celebrate life every day. Now, even though half of that was my success statement 2 years ago when I started this presentation, it is still very much the way I lead my life, okay, with very few differences. So I encourage you to think about writing your own success statement. So to conclude, I feel that life, it's like a jigsaw puzzle made up of a lot of pieces. And in the past, in my view, if you look at maybe not a jigsaw puzzle, but a pie. You know how a pie is cut into a variety of different slices. But in the past, maybe there's 6 pieces in the pie of your life. I've often found that 4 or 5 of those pieces were going well, but there was always one thing or one piece of the pie that wasn't going well. And then when you try to get that on track, another piece of the pie kind of fell to the wayside. So it's always been my dream, if I'm juggling all the pieces of my life, if they're all in the air, that they stay in the air rather than some fall to the ground. So it's important that we do everything we can to make time for every important aspect or piece of our life to be going at the same successful level. So we need to think about our families, our profession, our jobs, our romantic relationships, if we're students, or if not, our education or the whatever lifelong learning we as teachers engage in. Our self-improvement, we need to think about community through our voluntary outreach. We need to also have fun and do some hobbies in our leisure time. And there's, of course, our ever important religion that guides us through. So it's a challenge, I know, but it's something I think that we need to strive for every day. So how can we achieve balance? Well, one of the things that I and a number of colleagues, one of the speakers, I think Liz England, has she spoken yet, or is she tomorrow? She's tomorrow, I believe, right? And a couple of years ago, we put out an edited book called what was it called? Retooling, no wait, Reigniting, Retooling, and Retiring in TESOL. And the section on retooling had a lot of good ideas that teachers could use. And so some of the activities that you can use or recharge with include activities that you do now or ones that you did in the past. In fact, when I look back on the last year, because in a few days it'll be exactly 1 year since this started, at least for us here in Dubai, I have brought in a couple of activities that I did in the past. I have kind of reacquainted myself with, like Toastmasters. I took a 2-year break, but now I'm back into Toastmasters, which played a very important part of my life back in the day. Right now, I have always, things that I've always wanted to do, I have always wanted to make a committed effort to learn how to speak a bit of Arabic. And finally, I am, engaged. I have a Zoom tutor who's teaching me some Arabic. So activities you've always wanted to do, what's stopping you? I was first reluctant to do language study over Zoom, but I'm finding, especially as teachers get better with these online platforms, I'm finding it very, very satisfying to learn a language over Zoom. Activities that get you physically fit, I have finally in my life, even though I spend more hours sitting down every day, I have finally, for over a year now, gotten 10,000 steps a day on a very regular, almost every day of the month. So finally, that's taken me many years to be able to do, and I'm even managing to keep doing that as well. Keeping ourselves professionally engaged, I think things like this, events like this are so easy. 2 weekends ago, I spoke at Nile TESOL and did a plenary in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I did a plenary in Cambodia TESOL. That would never have been possible if I'd had to travel to those events. So now with the better we become at organizing events on Zoom or on any of the other platforms, the more we can be professionally engaged and learn more and spend our time in a better way. Things that we like doing now or we like doing in the past are activities that we can retool with and things that we might like to learn how to do. So think about those things and think about some of the silver linings of, or the advantages of being more reflective throughout the past year. So I'd like to hear some of your ideas about how we can reset the balance. So could I have some ideas in the chat box? Let me finish here, show you my email slide, and then I'm gonna stop sharing so James can relax a bit and not read the chat box. For me, resetting the balance means that there will be areas within your plan that will be uneven at times. And only if you're extremely lucky will you be juggling all those pieces and all those pieces will stay in the air. It's important to put leisure time, to have your leisure time to add excitement back into your life. And if you're extremely focused, focus is good, but it's not everything. So try to find another focus. Don't be heavily work engaged, even though I've used the past year to get a lot of huge projects off my plate. Balance, we have to accept, is the key to sustainable long-term success and work-life balance. So there's my contact. Take a picture of my email. If you'd like a copy of this presentation, just send me an email and I'll be happy to provide it. I'm going to stop sharing now so I can look at the chat. We've got 15 minutes left, I believe, for any questions you might have and for any comments you'd like to make. I'm particularly interested in any strategies you might have for recharging your professional batteries. And I'd prefer that you turn on your mic and share with me instead of typing. One of the less than stellar problems about things is that my eyesight, I find it so difficult to read the font of the text. Okay, we've got something from Azra. Let's see. Creative, reflective, and critical attitudes. Well, for that question, Azra. How can you use this? I think, have you ever thought of doing a focus group? I think focus groups work really well on online platforms, because I'm just assuming that you're teaching online, because we're still teaching online here in the UAE. So having an online focus group would be a good data collection method. Of course, surveys and questionnaires are good as well. Yeah. So how can you manage professional and personal life? Oh, you know, I wish I had an answer to that, Kaveh. I'd be a rich woman, wouldn't I? I think you can only do your best. You have to, like, as part of my success statement, I try to have fun every day. I try to have some kind of enjoyment. And then I also I do my job, but I also try to work on one of my own professional initiatives. Like I try to work on a book or an article or on a research study that is on my own professional plan, that's not necessarily part of my job. So that's what I try to do. It's kind of like I try to do my job. I try to do one professional thing from my own plan, and I try to have some fun as well, some enjoyment. I also try to get some exercise and try to eat something good or good for me every day. So that's kind of the way I think. Yeah. Yes, you're right, Katerina. Stress is always one of those things. Yeah, we definitely, but again, we'd all be rich if we knew how to keep ourselves from being stressed. Because for me, even we've been this on a year, we've been doing this for a year. At the beginning of this session, I got kicked off the interview. Okay, the Zoom call. You notice that I disappeared for a minute because my internet was unstable. That's what it says. And I still felt the same degree of panic 1 year later. This happens every day, 2 or 3 times every class. I get either kicked off the platform or the platform goes down. You think would be used to it, but I'm not. I still feel the same bit of panic. And I have to tell you, when this first happened, it used to be so upsetting for me. And I was at a down point where one time I cried in class because I thought, how can I teach the students? They have a test in 2 weeks. How can I get this material across so that they're not going to be disadvantaged? And then one of the students realized I was upset and said, don't worry, miss. This happens all the time in our other classes. You're doing a great job. That's all I needed to hear. So now I'm not so nervous, but in a conference kind of situation, in the first minute of my presentation, I still feel the same stress.